Hello and welcome back to another session. It is a genuine privilege to have you here with us. And I want to start by officially welcoming you to the Remedify coaching program. Your health is your wealth.
It's wonderful to be here. And I really love that title. Your health is your wealth. It just frames everything so perfectly.
It does, doesn't it? But, we should clarify something right out of the gate. Usually when people hear that phrase, health is wealth, their minds go to a very specific place.
Oh, yeah. The gym.
The gym, exactly.
Yeah.
They think about kale smoothies, treadmills, maybe checking their blood pressure, cutting out carbs. And look, don't get me wrong, all of that is vital. Physical stewardship is key.
Of course.
But here at the Remedify coaching program, we take a much wider, sort of a more panoramic view of what health actually means.
We do. Because you can have a perfectly healthy body. You can run a marathon, have perfect cholesterol. But if your mind is cluttered, if your spirit is anxious, or if you lack intellectual clarity, are you really healthy? You're just a physically fit person who is, well, unwell. Health is holistic. It's mental, it's spiritual, and it's intellectual.
Intellectual health.
Yeah.
That is a phrase we just don't hear enough, is it? We talk about emotional intelligence, sure, but intellectual health is different. It's like the immune system of the mind.
I like that. The immune system of the mind.
And that's really the focus of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We are going to be working out those critical thinking muscles. We're going to be looking at how ideas spread, how culture changes, and how our very perceptions of reality are often shaped by forces we aren't even paying attention to.
That's so right. To be intellectually healthy, you have to understand the environment you're living in. You have to understand the air you're breathing. And in the modern world, that air is made of information.
Right.
It's made of messaging. It's made of persuasion. And if you don't know how the air filters work, you're just breathing in whatever is pumped into the room.
So today, we are doing something a little different. We aren't looking at a medical journal or, a nutrition guide. We are looking at the mechanics of persuasion. We're going to look under the hood of how cultural change is engineered.
And we have a fascinating setup for that.
We do. We're looking at two books that are, diametrically opposed to one another. These authors would probably not want to be in the same room.
No, they really sit on opposite ends of the spectrum. It's almost a perfect collision of worldviews.
On one side, we have a book called After the Ball, which was written by Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen way back in 1989.
A long time ago.
And on the other side, we have The Marketing of Evil by David Kupelian, which was published in 2005.
And here is the mission for today, and this is so crucial for everyone listening to understand so we can really get the value out of this.
Okay.
We are not here to take sides in the political debates these books represent. That isn't our job today.
Right. We aren't here to tell you who is right and who is wrong.
No. Our job is to analyze the mechanics.
We are looking at the how. How are arguments constructed? How is language used? How is culture, engineered? Because what's so fascinating when you put these two books next to each other, which is what our source material does, is that you realize they are mirrors.
They really are. One is essentially a how-to manual for changing a culture. That's After the Ball. It lays out a clear strategy.
A playbook.
A playbook, exactly. And the other, The Marketing of Evil, is a critique exposing that exact same process. So you have one author saying, here is how we change the world, and the other author saying, look at how they changed the world.
Yeah.
But they are describing the exact same machinery.
It just brings up this massive question to kick us off. How do ideas that are once controversial or even taboo become mainstream?
Yeah.
Because we see it happen all the time. Think about the last 30, 40 years. Things that were completely unacceptable are now celebrated, and things that were standard are now questionable. Is that organic? Does it just happen like the weather changes?
Or is it a campaign?
Is it a campaign? And that is the hook. That is the core insight we are going to explore. Because both of these sources, despite, hating each other's goals, they agree on the method.
They do. They both agree that you change the world through repetition, through reframing, and through emotional appeal.
It is the science of changing minds. And before we dive into the nitty-gritty of these strategies, I just want to remind you that if you love this kind of deep analysis, if you want to keep building that intellectual and spiritual wealth, make sure you check out the full Remedify Coaching Program podcast series.
Absolutely.
We have so many exciting deep dives that really help you take control of your growth.
It's all about empowerment, isn't it? You can't navigate the world if you don't have the map.
So let's get into section 1. Let's crack open this first source. After the Ball.
Let's do it.
To understand this book, we really have to go back in time. We were talking about 1989. For some of our listeners, that's like ancient history. For others, it feels like yesterday. But context is everything here.
Oh, it is.
What was the world like when Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen sat down to write this?
It was a time of intense fear. You have to remember, this was the height of the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
The atmosphere in America wasn't just disagreement or political polarization. It was visceral.
Visceral, that's a good word for it.
Public hostility toward homosexuality in the United States was incredibly high. People were dying, information was scarce, and there was just a massive stigma.
Right, so this wasn't a debate about wedding cakes back then. This was a debate about survival.
Exactly. And into this environment, Cook and Madsen dropped this book. And our notes describe it in a really interesting way. They say it reads less like a memoir and more like a campaign manual.
A campaign manual.
Huh?
That implies a real level of detachment, doesn't it?
Uh,
A strategic coldness, almost.
that is the perfect description. It wasn't a book saying, woe is us, or just, telling sad stories to pull at heartstrings randomly.
Yeah.
It was a book saying, here's the problem, and here is how we solve it.
So they saw public hostility as a technical problem.
A technical problem. It wasn't just a moral problem to them, it was a messaging problem. They believed they were losing the argument because they were using the wrong sales pitch.
A messaging problem. That is such a shift in perspective. Usually when people are fighting for a cause, they think, we just need to be louder. We just need to show people we are angry.
And that is exactly what Kirk and Madsen argued against. They said, you don't win by shouting at people. You don't win by just demanding rights or engaging in what they called confrontational rhetoric.
Okay.
They said quite clearly that political gains changing the laws would only happen after you reshaped how the public feels.
Reshaped how the public feels. That is such a powerful phrase. It's not about what the public thinks. It's about what they feel.
Exactly.
So we are moving from the realm of logic to the realm of psychology.
Precisely. And that is the core strategy of desensitization.
Let's unpack that word. Desensitization. It sounds so clinical, like something you do for an allergy. In the context of after the ball, what does that actually look like?
Well, Kirk and Madsen were very practical about it. They called for a plain language approach. They argued that the goal should be to replace the public's disgust and anxiety with familiarity.
Oh.
You see, when people are bombarded with something they fear, their initial reaction is high alert. But if you expose them to it enough, in a non-threatening way, the brain just stops firing the danger signal.
Familiarity breeds, well, not contempt in this case, but acceptance.
Yeah.
Or at least indifference.
Yes. When you fear something, it's usually because it's unknown or it feels alien to you. So their strategy was to take the alien and make it ordinary. They explicitly encouraged presenting gay individuals not as activists marching in the street with signs.
Right, the loud, angry image.
But as ordinary neighbors,
Yeah.
as coworkers, as siblings.
So instead of the guy with the megaphone screaming about revolution, you show the guy mowing his lawn next door. You show the accountant. You show the person who looks just like us.
Precisely. Because it is very hard to maintain a high level of fear or disgust towards someone who looks and acts just like you. It was a tactic of normalization. You replace the anxiety with the mundane.
So the goal was to make the whole thing seem boring.
They wanted to make the gay experience seem as boring and normal as oatmeal.
I want to look at the reframing aspect here, because the source material mentions this shift from confrontational rhetoric to calm, steady messaging. This feels like a very deliberate branding choice.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when a company changes its logo to look softer or more friendly.
This was a huge strategic pivot they proposed. At the time, a lot of activism was very in your face. It was angry. It was designed to shock people into paying attention.
And Kirk and Madsen said,
They said, no, that's not working. That just makes people dig in their heels. They proposed the shared values approach.
shared values. That's marketing 101, isn't it? Find common ground with your customer.
It is. Frame the argument around concepts that everyone, conservative, liberal, religious, secular, already agrees with. Concepts like love, commitment, stability.
Ah, I see. So you aren't debating the theology of sexuality, which is, a losing battle in 1989. You're talking
Please.
about commitment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who is against commitment? Who is against stability? Who is against the idea of wanting to take care of a partner for life?
Right.
By shifting the ground of the argument to these universal values, they softened the resistance. They bypassed the theological or moral objections and went straight to the human connection.
It's a psychological lever.
Right.
You find the door that is already open, which is we all value love, and you walk through that one instead of banging on the locked door of sexual morality.
It is. And the source makes this profound point that really summarizes their entire philosophy. Laws follow sentiment. Sentiment follows narrative.
Laws follow sentiment. Sentiment follows narrative. I want to pause on that because that is the architecture of cultural change right there.
It's the formula. You have to change the story, the narrative, to change how people feel, the sentiment, and only then can you change the rules, the law.
So all the people who think they can change the culture just by passing a law are doing it completely backwards.
According to Kirk and Madsen, yes. If you try to change the law while the culture is still hostile, it won't work. A law won't be enforced or it will just be overturned. You have to till the soil before you plant the seed.
The source also mentions the use of humor. This was interesting to me. Using ridicule. That seems almost mean-spirited, but they saw it as a tactical necessity.
Yes, this is a classic rhetorical tactic. They advised using humor to weaken hostile rhetoric. If you can make the opposition look silly or like they're hyperventilating over nothing, you separate the extremists from the moderates.
Right. You make the critics look like the unreasonable one, like the cartoon villain clutching their pearls.
Exactly. You portray the strident critics as just a little bit crazy, a little bit obsessed, a little bit hysterical. And the average person in the middle, the person who maybe isn't sure what they think yet, says, well, I don't want to be like that guy. He looks unhinged.
And so they drift toward the reasonable center.
The center which Kirk and Madsen have carefully constructed.
It's fascinating because, again, looking at this purely as a strategy, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so disciplined. It requires swallowing your pride sometimes, not screaming when you want to scream, because the goal is persuasion, not just venting.
It is incredibly disciplined. It treats persuasion as a craft, not as a spontaneous outpouring of emotion, but as a calculated step-by-step process of moving a population from point A to point B.
So that's the blueprint. That's after the ball. Now, I want to flip the coin. I want to bring in our second source, The Marketing of Evil by David Kupelian.
And here the tone shifts completely. If after the ball is the calm, strategic manual.
This one is the fire alarm.
It is the fire alarm.
It really is.
Yeah.
This book came out in 2005, so we are looking at about 16 years later. The world has changed a lot. The strategies in After the Ball have been running for a decade and a half.
Right, and Kupelian is looking at the results. But where Kirk and Madsen see progress and justice and normalization,
Kupelian sees engineered manipulation. The title alone, The Marketing of Evil, tells you exactly where he stands. It's not subtle. He isn't pulling any punches.
No, it is not. It is a voice of warning. It's a voice of alarm. He's basically telling the reader, you think this is natural. You think this is just the world evolving. Wake up.
So what is his central thesis? How does he explain what happened during those 16 years?
Well, he uses this metaphor of marketing, hence the title. He argues that moral transgression, things that society used to consider wrong, harmful, or destructive, is being rebranded as liberation.
Rebranded, like a product. Like taking a sugary cereal and marketing it as part of a complete breakfast.
Exactly like a product. He argues that these shifts in attitudes toward family, toward sexuality, toward culture, they weren't just natural evolution, they were the result of calculated public relations. He believes the public was sold a bill of goods.
So he believes there was a coordinated campaign.
Yes, by elites, by the media, by activists, and he actually points to After the Ball as the smoking gun.
He connects the two. He's actually read it.
Oh, he does. He views After the Ball as the blueprint. He says, look, they wrote it down. They told us exactly what they were going to do. For Kupelian, that book proves that the public conscience was altered intentionally. It wasn't an accident. It was a plan.
So when he analyzes these tactics, the same tactics we just discussed, the language shifts, the emotional appeals, how does he describe them? Kirk and Madsen describe them as plain language. How does Kupelian describe them?
He describes them as psychological warfare, essentially. He talks about how terms are softened, how critics are caricatured, and how dissent is reframed as bigotry.
That last one is big. Dissent is reframed as bigotry. That feels like the ultimate strategic checkmate.
It is the ultimate silencer. If you can successfully frame any disagreement as hate speech, you win the argument by default. You don't have to debate the facts, you just attack the character of the opponent.
And Kupelian argues this was a specific strategy.
A specific strategy to shut down debate. By labeling the opposition as hateful, you remove their legitimacy to even speak.
And his core fear seems to be about the authenticity of our beliefs. He seems worried that we didn't choose this new world, but that we were somehow tricked into it.
Yes. His summary is effectively, moral standards erode when branding overtakes principle. He's worried that public opinion was guided, not persuaded. That people didn't actually change their minds based on facts or truth, but that they were manipulated by slick marketing into accepting things they otherwise wouldn't have.
It's the difference between education and seduction.
That is a great way to put it. Kirk and Madsen would say, we educated the public on the reality of our lives. Kupelian would say, you seduce the public into abandoning their moral compass.
This leads us right into the mechanics of how this battle is fought. And it really comes down to the battle of language, the words we use.
It always starts with language. I mean, if you can change the dictionary, you can change the world.
But before we get into the specific words, I want to pause, because we are throwing a lot of heavy concepts at our listeners. We are talking about manipulation, cultural engineering, fear, alarm. It can feel a little overwhelming.
It can. It can make you feel a bit paranoid, honestly.
Yeah, and that is why we need to anchor ourselves. We need a principle to hold on to so we aren't just tossed around by these ideas.
I like that. We need an anchor. And there is a core principle in the Remedify coaching program that applies here perfectly. It's something we say all the time, but today it has a special weight.
It does.
Yes. And I want to state this clearly for everyone listening. Always remember, prevention is better than cure.
Prevention is better than cure. We usually say that about our physical health, right? Don't wait until you have the heart attack to start eating right.
Right. Don't wait until the diabetes sets in to cut the sugar.
Exactly.
But it applies just as much, if not more, to your mind, to your spirit. Just as we prevent physical illness, we must prevent intellectual manipulation. Once you have swallowed a lie, it is very hard to cure yourself of it. It's much better to never swallow it in the first place.
So how do we do that? How do we prevent that intellectual infection?
By understanding how the tools work. You cannot be manipulated by a trick you understand. If you know how a magician saws the lady in half, you aren't amazed, you're just observing the mechanics.
Right.
To grow in mind and spirit, to be truly healthy, you must be aware of the architecture of legitimacy. You have to see the strings.
Seeing the strings. That's what we're doing today. So let's look at the strings of language. The source material breaks this down into sympathy versus alarm. This is the battlefield of vocabulary.
Right. So, after the ball advocates for the language of sympathy. This is very specific.
Give me some examples. How do they weaponize sympathy?
Well, it's about choosing words that avoid provocation. Instead of using clinical terms or political terms, you use human terms. You tell stories. You emphasize relationships rather than acts. You emphasize love rather than rights.
Okay.
The goal is to make the listener feel sympathetic, to feel, oh, they're just like me. They advise avoiding anything that sounds weird or fringe.
So you don't talk about the specifics of what happens in the bedroom. You talk about who makes the coffee in the morning.
Exactly. Because everyone makes coffee. Not everyone understands the other stuff. It's about bridging that gap with language.
And on the other side, the language of alarm.
The marketing of evil uses the language of alarm. Kupelian uses words like calculated softening, dulling moral sensitivity, corruption. He's trying to wake people up.
He's ringing the bell.
He is. He is saying, don't be lulled to sleep by those nice soft words. Look at what is actually happening underneath.
It is the power of naming.
Yes, the battle begins with naming. What do we call the thing?
The source lists some specific examples here that are really powerful. Let's look at them. Think about the term marriage equality.
That is a masterpiece of branding. Think about it. Marriage equality.
That sounds great. I mean, who hates equality? You have to be a monster to be against equality, right?
Exactly. The label invites agreement instantly. If you are against marriage equality, you are automatically framed as being against equality itself. You are the bad guy before you even open your mouth.
Versus the other side using a term like family values or parental rights.
Right. Same tactic. Who hates families? Who hates parents? Yeah. If I say I am for parental rights and you oppose me, then you are effectively saying you are against parents having rights.
So both sides are choosing names that make their position automatically sound like the moral winner. They're hiding all the complexity of the argument inside a label that feels good.
Precisely. And the source mentions others. Reproductive rights versus pro-life.
Right. One emphasizes freedom. The other emphasizes life.
Gender affirmation versus mutilation or confusion.
Gender affirmation. That is a very specific linguistic choice that has become very common recently.
It is. Affirmation is a positive word. It implies support, love, truth. It implies that there is a truth there that needs to be affirmed. If you refuse to affirm, you are denying reality.
Whereas Kupelian would likely use terms like confusion or dysphoria, which implies a problem to be solved, not a truth to be celebrated.
Correct. If you control the label, you frame the debate before a single fact is even presented.
That is the scary part. By the time you are arguing the facts, the emotional game has already been won or lost based on what you called it.
Yes. If I can get you to use my vocabulary, I have already won. Because my vocabulary contains my logic. If you use my words, you are thinking my thoughts.
So prevention. Prevention is better than cure. The prevention here is stopping to ask, why is it called that?
Yes. Why are we using this word? What does this word imply? Is there another word for it? Who came up with this phrase? That is the beginning of critical thinking. Don't just accept the terminology, interrogate it.
Let's move to the next layer of this architecture. Because it's not just the words we use, it's who is saying them. We need to talk about Section 4, the architecture of legitimacy, media and institutions.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Because you can have the best slogans in the world, but if you don't have a megaphone, nobody hears them. You need a delivery system.
And both of our authors, Kirk Madsen and Kupelian, recognize the power of the media.
Yeah.
But they see it very differently.
They do. Kirk and Madsen viewed the media, specifically entertainment media, as conduits for normalization. They saw Hollywood not just as an entertainment business, but as a vehicle for social change.
Why entertainment? Why not the news? Why not documentaries?
Because when you are watching the news, your guard is up. You are analyzing. You are skeptical. You know it's information.
Right.
But when you are watching a sitcom, when you are watching a movie, you are relaxed. You are emotionally open. You are identifying with the characters.
You are laughing.
You are laughing. And as we discussed earlier, humor is a great weapon. If you can make a character likable, funny, charming, and they happen to be gay, that does more for normalization than 1,000 political speeches.
Exposure makes the scary familiar.
Exactly. It's the Will and Grace effect.
Yeah.
Suddenly, this thing you were afraid of or that you thought was other is in your living room every Thursday night. They're making you laugh. You like them. It stops being scary. It stops being them and starts being us.
Now, how does Kupelian see this? Because he sees the same TV shows.
He sees the exact same phenomenon, but he calls it a conduit for moral drift.
Moral drift. That implies we are losing our anchor.
He argues that this sympathetic portrayal reduces necessary scrutiny. He believes that by making these behaviors look fun, harmless, and normal, the media is bypassing our moral judgment. He sees it as a form of deceit.
So he thinks the media is hiding the negative consequences.
And only showing the shiny, happy surface.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting how he views it as almost a betrayal by the institutions. Like they have a duty to uphold tradition,
Yeah.
and they are failing.
Yes. And it's not just Hollywood. It's academia, too. It's the doctors, the professors, the scientists.
The experts.
The experts. The source talks about institutional endorsement.
Explain that. Why is that so critical?
Well, Kirk and Madsen knew that if they just said, this is good, people might not believe them because, they're biased. But if a doctor says it, if a professor says it, if the American Psychological Association says it.
Credibility.
Authority.
Credibility.
The pattern is that academic research reinforces the new narrative. Expert commentary lends it weight. They knew they needed the institutions on their side to validate their lifestyle to the public.
And Kupelian's critique.
He argues that legitimacy is formed through repetition. When authority figures endorse change, public resistance weakens. We are trained to trust the experts. So if the experts say, this is healthy, this is normal, you are backward if you disagree, the average person says, well, they must know. They have the PhD.
It reminds me of the Milgram experiment or things like that. We defer to authority. We are hardwired to follow the person in the white coat.
We do. And both sides know this. That is why the battle for the universities, the battle for the medical associations, is so fierce. It's a battle for the stamp of legitimacy. Whoever gets the stamp gets to define reality for the rest of us.
Let's bring this into the modern day, because our source material does a great job of extrapolating this out to what we see right now, the everyday marketing.
Yes. It's not just on TV anymore. It's everywhere. It has leaked out of the screen and into the street.
The source mentions corporate involvement, pride logos.
Right. Think about June. You walk down the street or you open your web browser. Every logo has changed colors. Banks, sandwich shops, tech companies.
Commercials depicting diverse families, selling insurance, selling cars, selling laundry detergent.
Exactly. And looking at it through the lens of After the Ball, this is the ultimate victory of their strategy. It is normalization at its peak. It is so normal that banks and toothpaste companies, the most conservative, risk-averse institutions on Earth, are using it to sell products.
They wouldn't do it if it wasn't mainstream.
Not a chance.
And looking at it through Kupelian's lens.
It's the marketing of evil on steroids. It is the total saturation of the environment. You can't buy a sandwich without being messaged to. He would argue there is no escape. You are constantly being catechized by commerce.
The source also mentions educational settings. This is a huge hot-button issue right now. We see it in the news every week.
Huge. Language shifts in classrooms regarding gender and inclusion. What pronouns are used, what books are in the library.
We see school board meetings becoming messaging contests.
That is a perfect term for it, messaging contests. One side is using the language of inclusion and safety. We want all kids to feel safe.
And the other side?
The other side is using the language of parental rights and innocence. We want to protect our children's innocence.
And they're just shouting past each other.
Because they are operating in two different moral universes, using two different vocabularies. They aren't even having the same conversation. One is talking about safety, the other is talking about authority.
It really highlights that this isn't just accidental. This is a campaign on both sides.
It is always a campaign. Even when it looks like chaos, there is usually a strategy underneath.
That brings us to Section 5, Cultural Change as Campaign. I want to talk about the pacing of this, the element of time, because Rome wasn't built in a day, and it wasn't destroyed in a day either.
This is a crucial insight. Cultural change is a marathon, not a sprint.
After the ball talks about patience.
Yes. Kirk and Madsen advised gradual shifts rather than abrupt confrontation. They knew you couldn't change the world overnight. They preached patience as a tactical discipline.
Tactical discipline.
They said, don't ask for the whole loaf of bread. Ask for a slice, then another slice.
That is hard. Usually activists want everything now. They are passionate. They are hurting.
Right. But Kirk and Madsen understood that if you push too hard too fast, you get a backlash. The public immune system kicks in. So you push a little, you normalize, you wait, you push a little more, you move the line just a few inches.
And Kupelian calls this incrementalism.
He warns that this patience is just camouflage. He says that early concessions prepare the ground for larger claims. He argues that by accepting the slice of bread, you are implicitly agreeing to eventually give the whole loaf.
The slippery slope argument.
Essentially, yes. He argues that by the time you realize where the train is going, it has already left the station. He views patience not as a virtue, but as a trap, a way to lull the opposition to sleep.
It's the boiling frog analogy. If you throw the frog in boiling water, it jumps out. You turn the heat up slowly.
Exactly. We are all the frogs.
I want to reflect on the mirror effect again, because this is the most fascinating part to me. The source notes that both sides use the same tools.
They do. Repetition, reframing, appealing to shared values. Both sides claim to be fighting for freedom. Both sides claim to be protecting children.
But the divergence lies in the moral judgment of the outcome.
That is the only difference. One views image management as a tool for justice to help an oppressed group. The other views it as a tool for normalizing vice and destroying tradition. But the tool is the same.
A hammer can build a house, or it can break a window.
Exactly. The hammer doesn't care. The hammer is amoral.
That is profound.
Yeah.
The mechanics of persuasion are morally neutral. It is the intent and the outcome that carry the weight.
Yes. And that is why we have to study the mechanics. If you don't understand how the hammer works, you won't know if your house is being built or destroyed. You won't know if you're being liberated or manipulated.
And today, this is happening faster than ever. The digital dimension.
Oh, the speed has changed everything. If 1989 was a bicycle, 2026 is a Ferrari.
The source mentions that these 1989-2005 strategies have accelerated. Streaming platforms, viral posts, influencers.
In 1989, you had to get a TV executive to agree to air your show. You had to get past a gatekeeper. Now, you just need a TikTok account. You just need a YouTube channel. The gatekeepers are gone.
The echo chamber effect.
Persuasion travels at digital speed, and because of algorithms, we are constantly being fed more of what we already believe or more of what triggers us. The repetition part of the strategy, which Kirk and Madsen said was vital, is now automated by AI.
That is a terrifying thought. The repetition is automated.
It is. So the desensitization happens much faster. You can see 1,000 images in a day. The process of normalization that used to take years can now happen in months.
So, bringing this all together, we have looked at the blueprint, we've looked at the counter-argument, we have seen the language, the institutions, the pacing. What does this all mean for us?
Well, as we wrap up, we have to synthesize this. Whether you view these cultural changes as progress like Kirk and Madsen or as decline like Kupelian, It depends on your prior convictions, your moral compass. We can't tell you which one is right.
But the method.
The method is undeniable. We have seen the proofs, we have seen the manual, we know how the machine works.
And this brings us back to our core theme. Your health is your wealth.
Yes, intellectual health requires awareness of technique. You simply cannot critically evaluate the world if you don't see the marketing behind the message. You have to be awake.
You have to be able to look at a billboard or a news story or a tweet and say, who wrote this? What feeling are they trying to trigger in me, and why?
Exactly. It's about taking back your power. If you are just reacting, you are a puppet. If you are analyzing, you are a free agent.
I love that. Be a free agent. Don't let someone else pull your strings.
And I want to leave the listener with a final provocative thought. Something to really chew on.
Go for it.
The next time you see a news story, or an advertisement, or even a viral post from a friend, stop. Just for a second. Ask yourself, is this organic? Did this just happen? Or is this a campaign? What feeling are they trying to recalibrate in me?
That is the question. What feeling are they trying to recalibrate in me?
Because someone is always trying to recalibrate you. They want to change your baseline.
That is powerful stuff. And before we go,
Yeah.
I have to reinforce our golden rule one more time. It's the only way to stay healthy in a sick world.
Please do.
Always remember, prevention is better than cure.
It really is.
This applies to your body. Eat your veggies, get your sleep. But it applies to guarding your mind against manipulation. Don't wait until you are confused and lost to start thinking clearly. Start now. Build the defense systems now.
Prevent the infection of bad ideas by understanding how they spread. Vaccinate your mind with truth and critical thinking.
And speaking of resources to help you grow, we want you to have the tools you need. Check the episode description. We have put together some incredible resources to help you grow in your spirit, mind, and body.
We want you to be fully equipped. We don't want you to just listen. We want you to grow.
And a very specific resource I want to highlight today. This is for those of you who want to go deeper into your spiritual foundation. Do not forget to start your free Bible training at Tyrannus Hall Bible College, THBC.
That is a wonderful opportunity.
It is free training. It is deep. It fits right in with what we are talking about, building that spiritual and intellectual foundation so you aren't blown around by every wind of doctrine. The link is in the description, but I will read it out for you. https://trop.beacons.ai//KF/2020// Bible College.
Definitely check that out. It's an investment in yourself.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you for visiting the Remedify coaching program. We trust your time was well spent with us today. We know you have a lot of choices, and we appreciate you choosing to grow with us. Bye for now.
Always remember, your health is your responsibility.